Is it possible to script or orchestrate your reaction to a trauma? Take death, for example. You lose someone close to you in your life. Death literally means... Death means that someone died, right? But death can also literally mean that part of you died. Because when you think about just how interconnected all of our cells are, when you shake someone's hand, you take on someone's bacteria and you exchange biological DNA, and that it becomes a part of you. You absorb it, and I'm not sure how long it stays with you, but if you take that concept of just God knows how much of that person is still living within you, so there's those living cells that are living within you that came from the person that's deceased. They're looking for that, for their home, so to speak. So those cells are going to be looking for their biological mate. So there'll be a part of you, a part of them living on within you. Obviously psychologically, but physically too. And that takes some time to heal. That takes some time to die off. Those cells have to die off mentally and physically. A good way of processing grief in my mind is, think of it like, well, any trauma really. Imagine you break a leg. What do you do when you break a leg? You want to let it heal back in the right way. So just imagine you had the opportunity to heal your leg in the way that you want. Because most of the time when death comes into our lives, we just mindlessly go with the flow and react in whatever way is in front of us. We don't think too much about it. But what if we really interjected and consciously took control and said, hey, maybe I can direct the course in which I take, the direction in which I want to go, the way in which my best self could optimally deal with this. So you might break a leg and you might just sit on the couch and watch TV and eat crap all day, and yeah, it will heal, but it mightn't be the best way to do it. So what would be the best way to heal your leg? Well, it really helps with absolutely anything in life. The more conscious you are of anything, the more aware you are of the processes that's going on in your own brain, that will tremendously help your decision making. Like, the more aware that you are of what's going on, the more you can consciously take control and try shape your habits, therefore paving the way in which you want to go. You're kidding me. It's been nothing but birds and lovely, beautiful sounds all day, and the minute I hit record, the dogs are barking, the neighbours are cutting their grass. So, how do we become more aware of what's going on underneath the surface? Well, there's different ways you probably know of. One of the best ways is to meditate. It might sound trite or cliche, but it is the most powerful way to be able to see what's going on underneath the surface. But there's other ways. You can journal. It's a good way of dialoguing with yourself, and then things can come up. Or talk therapy, all of which are extremely important and useful. But let's just take meditation, for example. The goal in this exercise relating grief and meditation, you're not trying to meditate your feelings away. You're not trying. That's spiritual bypassing, to those that know that term, where you kind of bypass all your problems to in the process of becoming more spiritual, more enlightened, more in the moment, living in the moment constantly, but never actually addressing and feeling and processing whatever emotions are buried down that want to be felt and expressed. So we're not trying to meditate the emotions away. We're sitting down. I'm not going to teach you how to meditate. I'm sure many of you know how. There's a million different YouTube channels and help and guides out there to help you get into a good meditative state, to be able to anchor your awareness to some type of focal point, so that your monkey brain isn't just going out of control. So you're in some form of meditative state. What's the goal? Things will arise. Maybe you can consciously trigger it yourself by thinking of this deceased person, or things will come up naturally, whatever it is about the person. Maybe it's a thought about them, maybe it's a memory, maybe it's a feeling or a memory of a place or thing you used to do. Maybe it's something coming up in the future that you're not going to be able to share with them. Whatever it is that comes up in the meditative practice, that's inevitably going to trigger an emotion. So now we're more aware of the process, what happens, because this is going to happen in your everyday life. When you're at the shops, when you're with friends, when you're out, whatever, you're at work. And you're not going to be as aware when that happens then. So it really helps getting the practice in when you're alone with yourself and knowing what you're triggered by. Because you got to get to know yourself, your own pain and your own habits. The act of meditation is like your brain being on standby, and it's almost like you've heard of like the witness that witnesses you. So your brain is on standby. That's the frequency of on standby, and that frequency receives the contents of the subconscious that rise up or float up to the top. They float up to the top that would otherwise go unnoticed if you weren't in this receiving state of the monkey brain's turned off. You're in the witness state, the receiving state, receiving what's going on in the subconscious. So it floats to the top and you're like, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know that mattered to me. So this process is a great way to access the bulk of the unconscious things that get triggered within you, and it's a good way for you to get to know yourself. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be the all of your problems solved. This whole thing is a process. So this process is great, but there's always going to be parts of your grief that won't reveal themselves to you until they're triggered in the environment. So whether you're maybe at a place that you used to spend time with a person, or you're in a car that their car, or take your pick of what it is. You're at a football match, and then that you wouldn't have been able to access a certain memory if you didn't go to that football stadium, and now you have access to that like kind of hidden trauma that was locked in a vault. So the environment triggers it. It's like the concept of epigenetics. Epigenetics, if you don't know, is like every person has their own genetic makeup that was given to them by their parents, but so you have like all of your mum, you have some of your mum's genes and some of your dad's genes, but not all of them are activated right now within you. It depends on what you did in your life, in your environment, to activate trigger those genes that were given to you. So there's almost like a hidden wealth of potential of different genes that aren't fully switched on until you're in the right situation to do it. That's the broad concept of epigenetics, and it applies to the grieving process too, because no matter how much you scour your psyche and you journal and you talk to people and you meditate and all, you even working out or singing songs, creating music, creating whatever it is, there always will be a part that is reserved for a spontaneous moment wherever it is that it's triggered. So these are the parts of the grief that aren't in your control, and that's okay. You've obviously heard you have to control what you can control, and what you can't control, you leave up to God, so to speak. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to process all of your emotion all in one sitting. That's not the goal here. The goal of the meditation is to just know what's going on, so at least you're aware of it, and then what you do with that knowledge is up to you, whatever way you want to process it. And there's obviously a myriad of different ways you can process it. If you're a creative person, great, there's so much avenues and skill bases that you can go down and to help expand what's going on into some form of art or craft. People have all sorts of ways of taking emotional pain and transmuting it into something in the world. That's like the alchemical idea that you kind of want to do, because if you're not doing that, you are bottling it up. It is in you. That energy is circulating around in you, and it's gonna ferment, and that's okay. You know, it's no rush. You don't need to be doing everything correct and everything the right way. Like, I absolutely didn't, and this is all coming from a place of me doing many things wrong for so many years. Like, going back to the breaking your leg and healing it, like, I healed my leg in a terrible way, you know. Not the worst, but I mean, I was heavily addicted to weed for years, and the worldly pleasures, you know, food, binge eating and porn and all sorts of things that just spike your dopamine and make you passive, and just to get through the moment of that pain, you know. That's the cheap, processed way of healing your leg. And so that's why I'd love to just share what I've learned, because these are things that I've put into practice in only the last couple of years, and since I've began doing that, I have made leaps and bounds of progress than 10 years of just mindlessly reacting. Freaking neighbours are cutting the grass. It's the early spring here, so the sun is only out in Ireland, so everybody's taking advantage. I already got my grass cut the other day, but anyway, you don't care about those things. So, the meditation process. Now that you're aware of what's going on, you get to choose how to react. You get to choose your coping mechanism. Now, the pain, any type of trauma or pain, is you're going to be led towards more of the pleasures, the comforts of life, because it will spike your happiness, your dopamine, your serotonin, these things. That's why I became addicted to weed and bad food and bad everything, really. So that is the temptation, and like I said, no one's perfect. That's okay to dip your toe in, but from my experience, if you can get a handle on it before it gets out of control, because addictions can get out of control real quick, because the pain is a lot easier to deal with through the happy chemicals rather than processing the hard stuff. So this kind of goes into, like, goddamn dog barking. This kind of goes into some of you might think that, like, you don't have any choice in the way you react to big traumas and stuff like that. Like, you know, there's the whole free will versus determinism stuff. Well, people have argued about which one it is, like it's a binary thing, but like, we live in a dualistic world, or, you know, night, day, up, down, male, female. Why can't the same be true for free will and determinism? So the way I like to think, now I'm sure people have thought this concept before, but my frame of this is both can exist, but you can be in a state of determinism or you could be in a state of free will. I find, like, the free will choices are a lot more they're like reserved for really local actions. What I mean by that is, like, the more aware you, like, if you're on a busy motorway or highway for the Americans, you're on a busy highway and busy motorway, and it's load of traffic, you're gonna say to yourself, well, I don't have a choice, I'm stuck in between cars and that's just my route, and so it's determined, I don't have any other way about it. Now let's say there's someone else that is aware of, there's another slip road, there's an exit that way that they can go home, and so the person that's more aware has the free will to escape that deterministic path that's laid out in front of them. Now that's just one example in term, like, there's one quick example of what I mean by the more aware one is, the more free will they have. The less aware, the less conscious you are of what's going on, the more life will reveal itself as if everything is fate, like, and it's all cause and effect, and you're just a small cog in a large system and you have no control over anything. So I think, like, the larger you extrapolate, the less free will you have, because there's just the more variables you encounter. But that's what I meant by the more local it is, the more individual, the more, like, the smaller the thing is that we're interacting with, the more free will we have, i.e. a thought, i.e. an action, like an individual action we can do right now. So free will absolutely exists, But so does determinism. So it just depends how conscious you are. It was Carl Jung, obviously, who said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. I think that's what he said. I might be paraphrasing a little there, but that's the general concept. The more conscious you are, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. You will call it determinism. So now that we've established that you do have some agency and control, and if you are prepared and ready and willing, because God knows when you're faced with so much grief and pain, nobody wants to be their best selves. They kind of want to indulge in the vices of life, and like I'm one of them, you know. But if there's any strong-willed person that's just like, nope, I do not want to go down that path, my life isn't going down that direction, the world's your oyster in whatever way you would like to heal your leg. The best advice I could give you on what type of coping tool you could pick is chase real dopamine. You probably heard that before, but I'll briefly touch on what I mean by that. So real dopamine meaning things that you work for, you will get rewarded with real dopamine. So like exercise is a great example. You put some effort in, some hard work in, and you get tangible results back. So you're getting something back from your work. It's one of the best ways it's one of the best addictions and vices you could have in response to any type of trauma, like grief being the one we're talking about today. It's so tangible in the results you get back. It's like you're building more of you. You're expanding yourself rather than like falling into pleasure addictions. You're only eroding yourself. You're only, gaining some quick high to feel good temporarily, but you get nothing back from it, only deterioration and entropy. So whereas when you're chasing real dopamine, like achieving something, transmuting the pain into something tangible in the real world, or even just like better relationships, or even like whatever self-development goal, you're getting something back. You're expanding, you're growing as a person. So it's going to be way better for you to at least attempt to try be addicted to the good things, So either way, you will be coping one way or another. You'll be dealing with it in some type of way, so you may as well make it the way that you want it. You may as well make it a good coping mechanism. I'll leave you with this. So, a good frame to piece all this together that I've really adopted, that's helped me tremendously in my journey through bereavement and grief, is like I've done so many things wrong throughout the years, and it just came to a point where I could just keep on doing the things wrong, Or, think of it like this. You're 95, you're on your deathbed, very close to death, and you're given a second chance to go back in time to, I'm 30 years old, so go back into my 30-year-old body and given the chance to relive your life. So you're given the chance to relive your life from this very moment. So act as if now is your chance, your second chance to mourn and grieve and process the grief in the way that your best self would, like your higher self, the ideal version of you. You got this chance now to go back in time, and you know the mistakes that you made. I'm not going to make them again, so I'm going back and I'm going to do it the way that, let's say, if you're watching your life as if it's a movie and you're the main character, what would you want the main character, you, of your life to do? What's like the most optimal, best, favourable way that you would like to react? Maybe it is going down the route of addiction and turmoil and homelessness or whatever. Pick your poison of what hard life you can choose. Maybe that is your desire, because you might have incarnated on earth to learn how to process really hard experiences. So I'm not telling you whatever way you want to deal with it, but I guess the greater point I want to emphasize in this whole video is that you do have a choice, and it's no pressure. You don't have to be perfect in the way in your choices. But I did a lot wrong for a long time, and then I was just going to stay on that path until I just said, I'm gonna act as if this is my second chance, and I'm gonna just pretend. I just stopped caring what people think. You know, this very process of this YouTube channel is one thing I've been anxious about for a long time, because I've wanted to do it, but worried about people thinking this, that, and the other, and all the cringy stuff of putting yourself out there. But then I just applied that same way I'm thinking in my private life of like, you know, this is my second chance. I'm going to live how I want to live. So be the main character in your life that you would want, and heal that leg in whatever way you see fit. But chase real dopamine. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.